2 weeks after Nancy Pelosi took a trip to Taiwan, a congressional delegation is traveling there for the sake of private interests. And it's important to keep that in mind when you hear some of the cover story provided by these congressional leaders and the excuses that they're using for visiting Taiwan. Now, the delegation includes Senator Ed Markey, you have Representative John Garamendi, Representative Alan Lowenthal, Representative Don Beyer, and also Representative Amada Coleman Radwagen. Raidwagon. Now, some of those people you might not have heard of, but as you can see, it's a bipartisan delegation who took a trip to Taiwan. And what's the purpose? Why are they doing this? Especially considering the fact that it is provoking China. They have now started conducting military exercises in retaliation of these types of visits. And the group led by Markey will meet with Taiwan's president and foreign minister and will also hold discussions with the Taiwanese parliament's Foreign Affairs and National Defense Committee on security and trade issues, Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said. And of course, China sees this as provocative because while Taiwan wants the ability to govern itself and determine what type of government it is functioning under, China very much sees Taiwan as part of its own country. And while the United States continues to push the messaging that it supports Taiwan and its ability to engage in self-determination, again, China sees that as provocative and is inching us closer and closer to something that could involve military action. And that's what's really terrifying about this. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, Taiwan accounts for about 70% of the world's semiconductor supply. And it's the world's largest contract chip maker. It's known as Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Co., or TSMC for short. TMC is currently investing about $12 billion into a new plant in Arizona. And so there is a trade relationship there, but if that's the reason you have members of Congress visiting, that should be plainly stated. But obviously there's more to it than that. TSMC is the exclusive supplier of Apple's silicon processors for iPhones and Mac PCs, as well as the manufacturing partner of other US companies like AMD, Broadcom, and Qualcomm. And during her visit to Taiwan, Pelosi met with the chairman of this company. His name is Mark Liu. And what happens to the semiconductor industry if China invades or blockades Taiwan? Well, that's a huge consideration here. A year-long disruption, for instance, to Taiwan's chip supply chain could cost global electronics companies some $490 billion in losses. And that's according to a 2021 report by the Boston Consulting Group and Semiconductor Industry Association. Should Taiwanese chip output be disrupted permanently, it would take at least 3 years and $350 billion to build production capacity elsewhere to make up for it, the report said. And I've got a lot more detail to get to in this, Cenk, but anytime the United States pretends to care about the freedom, the liberty, and the safety of individuals in another country, that's usually a cover story. It's usually because of various financial and business interests rooted here in the United States.
Yeah, so Jacobin had an interesting article showing how much everyone on cable news was cheerleading for it. MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. Hey, we found agreement in the country. All, of course, by very wealthy anchors and very wealthy guests, some of whom work for think tanks funded by defense contractors. I'm sure that's a wild coincidence, of course, never revealed to their audience. And they all had an orgy of agreement that we should saber rattle against China and Nancy Pelosi. Fox News complimenting Nancy Pelosi, MSNBC complimenting the idea of aggravating China, potentially leading to a war. Oh, funny, when the money lines up, all the media lines up. And they're lining up for what? I mean, on this one, it's absurd on top of absurd. We looked into the semiconductor angle because something clearly doesn't add up here. On the surface, they're saying Pelosi's randomly going, and now we've got a new delegation also randomly going to check China. Why? What is China doing? Is there hostilities between China and Taiwan? Of course. China's been doing their own moves in regards to a couple of islands off their coast, which are technically part of Taiwan. So it's not like China's innocent and has done anything and has no bad intentions ever. At the same time, there wasn't anything in particular now that China had done that Pelosi was responding to. That's why cable news just set up a completely alternate reality. They almost all lied and said that Pelosi was going as a response to China, but China didn't do anything. I mean, certainly not recently, certainly not in any connection to this trip. So in Washington, it's always the money. One, defense contractors need a new threat, whether any hostilities break out or not. It's a good excuse to build more weapons. And then the CHIPS Act just passed. It has to do with semiconductors. 70% of the semiconducting industry, as Anna just pointed out, tie into Taiwan. I don't know yet exactly what the answer is, but it would be surprising if that didn't have something to do with it.
Yeah, it seems like, look, anytime there's some nonsensical foreign policy move or something done by leadership that doesn't appear to be the most diplomatic, it's usually done on behalf of their corporate donors and corporate interests. What I want to understand a little better is why it is that we need a foreign corporation to invest in a semiconductor manufacturing plant here in the United States when Congress just allocated a ton of taxpayer money to essentially do the manufacturing here in the United States. Like, listen, nothing against Taiwan, but the whole idea of doing this was supposed to make us a little more independent, especially after we saw how incredibly fragile our supply chains really are, certainly during a global pandemic. So the idea, and we've seen what foreign investment in the car industry here in the United States has led to a lot of people losing their well-paying union jobs, and then those jobs get replaced with jobs that are provided by a foreign company that's actually based in China. Those jobs, as you can understand, probably already guessed, are not unionized jobs. The hours are far more grueling. The workers get less benefits. I just don't really understand why we're headed in this direction. Again, when so much money was already allocated by Congress in order to manufacture semiconductors here in the United States. I mean, they talk about being independent, but they're never really serious about being independent, especially when you consider they're now talking about taking all this investment from a Taiwanese company.
Yeah, so buckle up, because everyone in mainstream media thinks we need a new enemy and maybe a new conflict or a new war. And when they do that, it is an enormous propaganda machine. And so there's no need to provoke China on any of this. It's absolutely mental to do it. And I guarantee you, it's always the defense contractors that agitate for more conflict, for sure. But there's usually a second thing that puts it over the top. And in this case, it looks like it's the semiconductor industry. They've got some angle they're playing in Taiwan, whether it's to appease someone for losing business or it's to give them a reward to do more business. But everybody's looking to get paid. That's what Washington's all about. This has absolutely nothing to do with a response to China, because in the short term, China didn't do anything to respond to. So if you see anyone in the media lying about how America had to respond to China, nothing but a bald-faced lie.
And to your point, Cenk, I just want to provide the receipts for what you're talking about regarding the media. So let's get that second video here ready to go, because this is the kind of conversation you can expect from corporate media in regard to these visits to Taiwan and these provocations that are starting by US lawmakers like Nancy Pelosi and this delegation. So let's take a quick look at that video, and I'll let you have the final word. Let's watch.
I'm gonna show my bias here right up. I was like, yes, thank you, Nancy.
And because of the debacle in Afghanistan and the failure to deter Russia in Ukraine, Taiwan has become the test of American credibility, not just in the region, but worldwide.
Xi Jinping is trying to rewrite the status quo in our relationship with Taiwan because he thinks he can get away with it. And he already has in some ways changed that status quo, because he's elevated just a routine legislative trip to Taiwan to something that requires presidential level attention and presidential level pressure. It's very important that we not allow him to do that.
Well, the New York Times in an op-ed yesterday said nothing good will come of it. Yes. Taiwan will not be more secure or more prosperous as a result of this purely symbolic visit, and a lot of bad things could happen. You've outlined some of those. They go on to say these include a Chinese military response that could result in the US being plunged into indirect conflicts with a nuclear-armed Russia and a nuclear-armed China at the same time.
Right.
Your response to that?
Well, he's totally wrong. From the Democratic Party point of view, whether it's primaries or the midterm elections, Nancy Pelosi has just stolen an issue away from Republicans.
Wow, what an election-winning issue, provoking potential conflict with China at a time when we're already dealing with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the economic, ramifications of that, which everyone else is bearing the burden of. I mean, it's so incredibly stupid. But you're absolutely right when you target the way the media has covered this, Cenk. I mean, it's nothing but rah, let's do it. Let's cheer for Nancy Pelosi. And I just find it hilarious that the former head of the Republican National Committee is one of the individuals who's cheering Pelosi and others on.
Yeah, on MSNBC, they warmonger her by saying this is the test of American credibility. Well, I don't even know what that means. That's the kind of thing that idiot talking heads that are bribed by defense contractors say. So how is China testing our credibility? Are there aircraft carriers on their way to Taiwan? If there were, that would be testing our credibility. But there are no such things. We're going and poking them in the eye for no goddamn reason. How is that testing our credibility? It sounds like we're testing their credibility for no reason to start a fight. Who's testing us? What the hell is he talking about? But on MSNBC, they're like, yes, way to start more conflict. What happened? I thought you guys were the left-leaning channel. It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. It's all corporate media. And then on Fox News, all of a sudden they're kissing Nancy Pelosi's ass. What happened? I thought you guys were lions fighting against those Democrats who are awful and all this stuff. Now, no, when she wants to start a war, all of a sudden Fox News says, they just stole an issue from us. To Anna's earlier point, what issue? Were they running the midterm elections on whether Nancy Pelosi was gonna go to Taiwan or not? And they're like, oh, God damn it, now we can't say she's not going to Taiwan. You're gonna run ads on that? No, what are you talking about? Is there a single voter in the country who thinks, well, I wasn't gonna vote, but now that Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan, like they're so used to lying to their audience for corporate cash that they're just not even trying anymore. It doesn't matter, go start a war. Say the dumbest things. I mean, we said Saddam Hussein attacked us on 9/11. That wasn't anywhere near true. We'll make up anything. It doesn't matter, just gibber your word salad. Let's start a war already. Right. Cable news for war. They're the only people in the country who want war. Last thing, it's not that China wouldn't love to take Kinmen and some of the islands off their coast, and maybe even Taiwan one day. But this doesn't make it less likely that they'll do that. It makes it more likely that they'll do that. Because it gives them a provocation for no reason. So now they could say, well, we're responding to a provocation when there wasn't one before. And who loses? The whole world. Who wins? Greedy defense contractors, probably someone in the semiconductor industry, and all the corrupt politicians and all the corrupt corporate media.
Listen, whenever it comes to foreign policy, especially, if it don't make sense, it's definitely making dollars. So we'll see how this plays out. We'll stay on the story and give you guys details as it develops. But my hope is it doesn't develop. My hope is they just let this go and they don't further provoke China toward more aggression.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.